Como madre orgullosa, siempre quiero lo mejor para mi familia. Y los únicos huevos que compro son Eggland's Best. ¿Casualidad? ¡Para nada! No importa cómo los cocines, siempre están frescos y deliciosos. Además, tienen más vitaminas D y E y un 25% menos de grasas saturadas que los huevos comunes. ¿Por qué conformarse con menos cuando puedes tener lo mejor? Eggland's Best. Mejor sabor, mejor nutrición, mejores huevos. Visita egglandsbest.com para obtener más información.
Meet Morgan Jones. Morgan is about to step into a world unknown to most, thanks to Progressive's Renters Insurance, a place of fresh linens and turn-down service. You see, Morgan temporarily vacated her apartment and has gone to a hotel because a pipe burst in her apartment. A pipe that made her sense of reality and apartment ceiling all come crashing down. Luckily, Morgan checked into Progressive's Protection Zone. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and third-party insurers.
Hey you, welcome back to another episode. Before I clicked record, for some reason, I just could not figure out whether I should say welcome back to the podcast or welcome back to another episode. But either way, welcome back to another conversation with me. Welcome back to the podcast if you're a new listener. No, if you're a returning listener, oh my god. If you're a returning listener, yeah, welcome back to another conversation with me. But if you're a new listener, welcome to the Almost 20 podcast, a podcast that revolves around everything self. Now, a couple of episodes ago, I asked you guys to send me whatever thing it is you wanted advice on, as random as it could be, a few questions, and I got a few responses on it, and I'll do my best to give you my thoughts on it. And so, without further ado, let's dive right into answering those questions. So the first question says, what age would you advise a guy to start dating? Ooh. Age and dating, one of those spicy questions. That was my first reaction when I saw the question. I was like, one of those spicy questions. I feel like in today's society, especially in my current society, which is the Nigerian society, there is this thing whereby as a young person, and by young I mean below the age of, let's say, 22, as a young person, you're expected to not be involved with relationships. Do you understand? You're expected to just be focused on books, I would say, or whatever it is you have going on in your life. And then once you've reached the university level, let's say you're around 16, you're still expected to be focused on your books, and then you graduate, and then you're expected to get a job and focus on that job. But at the end of the day, everybody's expecting you to bring back home your significant other. Do you get? So I don't know how that makes sense in this society, but we have this thing whereby we are so conservative, and I don't know if I should call it an act, but we have this thing whereby everybody just shies away from the topic of dating as compared to how other people outside the country would do it, you know. But from your question, which says, what age would you advise a guy to start dating? The fact that you're already thinking about this and you asked this question, it means that you're not looking for something short term. You're looking for a long-term relationship. You're looking for a very meaningful long-term relationship. But the question here is, what age should you pursue this relationship? What age should you pursue this? Now, I would say that getting into a relationship is not just dependent on age alone, but age does play a role. You get? Now, let me just digress a little bit. I would say that there are some situations whereby somebody who's like 17 years old would get into a relationship that is healthy, supportive, wonderful, and that relationship blossoms into something long term. Meanwhile, somebody who's in their 30s, 40s is in a very toxic, unhealthy, abusive, bad relationship, you get. So there are situations like this. It's not always black and white. It's not always this or that, or either this or this, you get. But I would say that in some certain situations, and most of the time, getting into a relationship is not only dependent on age. Why do I say this? I say this because when you talk about getting into a relationship, it's dependent on something, and that is a level of clarity that you have on what you want. Now, why I say that age is dependent here, but not the entire thing that you should depend on, is that when you are seeking to get into a relationship, especially the kind of relationship that you're looking for, you need to know what you want before you pursue that relationship, especially if you're looking for a very good, meaningful, long-term relationship. You don't get into those kind of relationships with ambiguity. You get into those relationships knowing what it is you're looking for. Now, why I say age plays a role is that for a person to actually know what they want, they need to have a good number of experiences. You get somebody who's 15 probably does not know what it is they want. They are mostly focused on, do I like this person? Oh my god, this person likes me back. Bam, let's date. Oh my, it's normally this youthful attraction and excitement of mutual attraction. But I would say as a person grows older, then now comes this thing whereby they've had multiple experiences with their environments, they've heard stories, they are now telling themselves, okay, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I'm not looking for, this is what I would appreciate, this is what I would not appreciate. Do you get? And so to answer your question, I would say that age plays a role, but age is not everything. And I do not know what age you are in, but I would assume that you are younger. And so I would say that if truly you've looked inward and you've decided that you actually want to be in a relationship, a meaningful long-term relationship, what I would advise you to do is to start seeking clarity on what you're going to be looking for in your partner. Are you looking for a person who is just fun to chat with? Like whenever you're around that person, there's no boring moment. Are you looking for somebody who shares the same spiritual values as you? Are you looking for somebody who's just all about honesty? Are you looking for somebody who's a high achiever? Are you looking for somebody who's on a very high level? They have their ambitions, their goals. Like you need to know what it is you're looking for. But that only comes from knowing what it is you want and you like, so that there will not be this compatibility whenever you meet that person. Do you get? And I would also say this, that the desire to get into a relationship should come from you wanting to be in a relationship and should not come from maybe the fact that you're feeling pressure to get into a relationship. You're seeing everybody get into relationships and you're not asking yourself, well, should I get into a relationship now? I mean, everybody seems to be doing it. No. My answer to your question here is that if you are not at an older age, which doesn't even guarantee clarity, because somebody could be at an older age and still not know what it is they want. But I would assume that you are at a younger age. So I would say seek clarity on what it is you want. Most of the time, that clarity comes with age. And so if you're comfortable with waiting until you are really grounded on what it is you want, fine and good. Have fun with flirting around. Have fun with wonderful experiences you get. Just explore while you get to figure out what it is you want for yourself. But if you're actually deciding that, okay, I actually do want to experience a relationship, a long-term meaningful relationship, I would say don't go into it anyhow. Genuinely, don't go into it anyhow. I don't know if this sounds very boring, like a boring advice, but don't go into it anyhow. Actually see with yourself and know what it is you want, what it is you like, what it is you do not like. Now, when I say that, I don't mean you should be very strict with what you're looking for, in the sense that you say, oh, this person must be 5'11", nothing less, nothing more, brown hairs, blue eyes. Like, I'm not saying be very strict in the creation. That would just lead to disappointment. But genuinely sit back and ask yourself what it is you want and you're looking for in a companion, and then go for that. And then you would find yourself feeling more fulfilled with the kind of partner that you would settle with, knowing that this is what you were actually looking for. Do you get? So that's my advice and my thought on that. So if my voice sounds very different or the entire audio sounds very weird, maybe it sounds a bit echoey, just bear with me, because where I was recording, a neighbor in a different compound just turned on their generator and it got into what I was recording, which was very annoying. I almost got up to go video and be like, oh, what's wrong with you, you stupid fool? Don't you know I'm recording an episode? It's actually annoying. It's actually annoying when you're recording something and then there's just this noise. It's almost like when you decide to record, that's when life and nature decides to tell you that it's actually quite noisy. But let's just get right into the episode. You have to bear with me if the episode sounds a bit echoey. So next, somebody asks, how will I make my first 1 million before the end of February, assuming I have little computer skills? Now, the first thing I would say is that nothing is impossible. And this might sound a bit unrealistic to a lot of people. It might sound a bit unrealistic and large to a lot of people. I would only agree that it sounds large, but not unrealistic. Also, I would hope that this is something that you are actually really seriously thinking about and actively working towards. Like, it's not something that you're just saying, oh, well, I hope that I can get 1 million before February ends. I mean, I have little computer skills, but let's just hope that 1 million appears from anywhere and I just have it. No. Okay. I actually hope that is something that you're actually working towards. So let's talk more about this. One thing you need to know is that people who make a lot of money are people who render services to other people. Now, the services that these people render are divided into two types of services. It could either be active services or it could be passive services. Active in the sense that you are actually involved in the rendering of the service. For example, let's say a food delivery service or a manicure and pedicure service or a hairstyling service, services whereby you actually have to be present unless maybe you employ somebody or you now you've grown enough to have your team involved. You understand? That's where you can say, okay, you're not directly involved, but for the most part, you're actively involved in the rendering of that service. And then passive service, passive in the sense that you do not have to be actively involved in rendering that services. I think such services could be, let me say you're an author and you've written a book and that book is being purchased worldwide, nationwide. And so you're not exactly involved at all. Maybe you could be involved in book tours or meeting your readers, but for the most part, you're not actively involved in all of that, right? So the first one involves you being actively involved in rendering the service, while the passive does not. We already have that one. We already understand that. Now, people who make a lot of money, like we're all aware now, are people who render services to people for the most part. Now, the thing is that these services that these people are rendering to people are usually services that people actually need or services that people actually will be coming back for. Now, this could be services like services in the entertainment industry. People go there to laugh. People go there to maybe get entertained and also learn something from. You also have the education sector. People go there to, education is almost like the bedrock of our society. People are going there. It's almost inevitable that you need to get these services. You understand? Restaurants. Should I go any further? There is food. When it comes to IT, now you said you have computer knowledge, or you said you have computer skills, right? Little computer skills. So let's go into the ICT sector. Let's say something like repairing of ICT devices, phones, your iPhones, your laptops, your tablets, every electronic device you use. For the most part, they are bound to spoil. You don't see any device that can last 100 years, an average human being's device. At some point, you need to change one or two things. Now, if this is just an average human being, you can imagine the number of human beings who use electronic devices in this world today that would need services that have to do with IT. You get? And then there are also other IT services like graphics design. You understand? And so all of these I'm listing services to you are services that people actually need and come back, which ranges from entertainment to IT services. Now, one thing I would say is that before you then rush into saying, okay, I need to provide services, one thing you should then have at the back of your mind is that the service that you would provide is a service that you'd like, a service that you'd enjoy, and a service that is inevitable for people to come back. Like they have to come back and get this service. And it's a service that you need to actually enjoy the process of doing so that will create longevity. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Now, when it comes to your own side, you said you have little computer skills, right? Now, let's talk more about that. Your tech skills, we would have to consider if your tech skills are relevant. How do I mean by relevant? Now, you see, there are sometimes whereby a person might have a particular skill, and that skill, as good as it is and as good as they are good in that skill is not relevant in their environment, in their immediate environment. They might go another side and then just immediately start making money from that skill. Meanwhile, where they were before, they're not making a lot of money. So you need to ask yourself, is this skill relevant? This little computer skill that you say you have, is it a relevant skill that you look around your immediate environment and you're like, this can actually provide something for me? And then once you've answered that question for yourself, if it's something that is relevant, we move on to the next step. If it's not relevant, then you need to get a different skill. Once you've gotten clarity on that side, we then go into the next side of getting good at that skill. So that computer skill you have, that little computer skill you have, let's assume that skill is actually a relevant skill, because these days a lot of tech skills are very, very relevant. Then you need to get good at that skill. Oh my god, I'm actually sounding a bit excited. I don't know why. You see why I said I actually enjoy giving advice. I actually get excited by doing this, but you need to ensure that your skill, you get good at it, because you want to be the best at your game and you want to last long at it. So you need to get good at it. If it requires you maybe getting courses, maybe meeting mentors, people that are very good at that course already, or people that are good in that skill, you meet them, you need to learn, you need to practice, you need to take on jobs. And then after you realize that, okay, you're getting good at that skill, don't let imposter syndrome stop you, because it has the tendency to do that. You're like, oh, I don't think I'm really good enough. I should step down. I should not accept roles. Maybe I shouldn't even push myself out there. I should just maybe stay silent. Don't let that happen. Get good at your skill. Get good at your skill. Keep on getting good. And then start telling people around you, hey, I offer this service. Hey, I'm good at this thing. You should actually, do that. I remember when I was in SS2 and I was very well into technology. I had a little bit of IT skills here and there. Now, one thing I knew how to do very well was to transfer files between multiple IT or technological devices or items. There was a classmate of mine who had a laptop and a flash drive, and sometimes he wanted to watch a CD. To cut the long story short, I was able to help him to move files from his CD, that's the CD disc, to his flash drive. And I started charging him for it, which was like 200 naira then. It was actually it was actually small money to make, but you get the gist. I actually started to tell him that, okay, I could do this. I pitched myself to him, and then eventually started making money from that process because he was coming back because he needed that service. Do you get? And then all other people knew, okay, this boy is actually good in tech. He knows what he's doing. He knows his way around all of these minor inconveniences that we have. You understand? So now spread your work. You're good at this. You're good at that. You're good at this. Now, I would say that I'm a bit skeptical when giving financial advice because I've never sat down to say, okay, I need to make my own money. I need to make my own first 1 million naira. I've never done that before. But all of these things I'm saying is from an experience that I've gathered, my own personal experience. So we move forward, I guess. So what I've said so far in regards to you making your own money and a large sum of money, particularly your goal of making 1 million before the end of February, is the skill you have. Is the skill relevant? Right? You should have a skill that is providing service. Now that skill, is it relevant? If that skill is relevant, hone that skill, hone it very well, then start providing service to people. Apply for roles, tell people, pitch yourself out there basically. Once you started pitching yourself, now this is where the making money part comes from because you need to offer service to make money. Now, once that money starts coming in, what you're going to do is to then collect 10% of your money. Do you know, as I'm just talking like this, I just remember the book I was reading. I've paused for a while, but it's called The Richest Man in Babylon. That book is the treasure of financial knowledge. Like, if you need to know more in depth, much more than I can even talk about in this segment, you should go and check out that book, The Richest Man in Babylon. It's not your average boring financial literacy book. It's a story basically. It's almost like it's fiction, but the knowledge there is so good. It's a gold mine. Now, this is where I get my knowledge of 10%. So after you're applying that skill, every income you get from that skill which you're providing, 10% of that income, you should keep it aside. Do this for a year and then invest. You could invest in getting a better setup. You could invest in maybe banking in sectors that you now have money that just keeps on returning for you. Do you get? I don't know too much about investment, but I will say that investments would yield wealth for you that you don't have to work for. And then you can invest in multiple and different safe sectors, emphasis on safe, and then you make money. And then your wealth starts to accumulate from there. Your wealth starts to accumulate from steady investments, from services. It will take a lot of time, but you can then accumulate much more wealth than you even intend to. So to some of the advice I just gave in regards to your question, remember that people who make money are people who offer services to people. You've mentioned having computer skills. That's wonderful already. As little as you say it is, it's wonderful. Now that skill, what's the relevance? Make sure that skill is a relevant skill. Hone that skill. Provide services from that skill. Apply to various roles and start earning income from that skill. No matter what that skill is, you say it's a computer skill, you're obviously going to make money from it. Tech is actually something that it's a hot cake, should I say so? It's a hot cake. And then start making money from that skill. Then 10% of that money, save it in a secure place. Save it, let it accumulate, and then look further into investment options. And then whilst you're starting your journey into financial literacy, start reading The Richest Man in Babylon book. I can assure you with every single certainty in my body that you would gain a lot more from that book. Okay. Now, I would also say that the 1 million naira, or I don't know if it's naira, honestly. I don't know this person. I don't know the currency. Okay. I'm naturally, I would say naira because that's what I use on a day-to-day basis. But I would say that the 1 million you plan to make in February, it can only happen in two ways. Either the skill you make is so important that you get lots of gigs consistently within a very short amount of time. You're getting multiple gigs that instantly you clock 1 million from just the income you're making already. Or you charge so expensively that just with 10 services you've offered to people, you've already made that 1 million. Do you get? I'll say from a good place that you should maybe just reduce the expectation of saying 1 million. You could maybe make the mark to be 100,000, 200,000, 50,000, even 20,000, even depending on how your situation may be or how it applies to you. And then as time goes on, increase the mark. And that's what I have to say. I'm so sorry that this advice was longer. It's just something that I felt like I needed to talk more on because it's not something I'm going to give lightheartedly, right? With my very patch knowledge on financial literacy, it's not very strong and everything, but I do have something to say about this, and I hope that I missed all of this rambling I just said. There is something important that you could get from it. I would advise you very, very well to check out The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a very, very wonderful book. It's not boring. It's like a story whereby you get a lot of financial literacy tips and lessons from each chapter. If you don't like it, come and meet me. And I don't know, if you don't like it, find me anywhere and tell me and accuse me, but I can assure you that you would enjoy the book. So let's go on to the next question. Someone said, I need an advice in terms of my poor communication skills. Poor communication skills, I would say that it can mean a lot of things. Because there were no specifics here, I narrowed it down to two things. It's either you have poor communication skills at, let's say, expressing yourself, or poor communication skills at continuing a conversation with people. So what I would advise you to do is to start small, right? I had a friend who, and I pray this friend doesn't listen to this episode, but I had a friend who wasn't very good at communication. Wonderful person, but wasn't good at communication a lot. And the only way this person got better was by putting themselves out there and starting small. And starting small was within our circle. This person expressed themselves more, said what they like, what they didn't like. They said their thoughts. And then the breaking point or the breakthrough that this person had was when they had to do something. I think it was a project or something that required them talking to strangers at a time, and it was within a short period of time. And this person had to go out and meet strangers and start talking with them to get them to do something for them. And the entire experience made this, my friend, realize that, okay, wow, I can actually do this. Like, I have it in me. It's actually a wonderful experience to. So all of these things I'm saying is that start small. If you have an issue with expressing yourself, what you need to do is to start around a safe circle of people that you're comfortable expressing yourself around. Express yourself more than you normally would. If there are certain scenarios whereby you would normally keep quiet about particular things, don't keep quiet. It will be scary at first, but as time goes on, you get comfortable at doing it. If it then comes to you not being able to continue or carry a conversation, I would say that there is no magic that would make you suddenly get better at improving your communication skills, right? The only way it gets better is literally by practicing. I don't know how boring this advice would sound, but it literally gets better by practicing. There was a time whereby I felt like I wasn't really good at communicating very well. And only what helped me was that I would meet a random person and attempt to strike up a conversation with them. And I would tell myself, regardless of how this conversation goes, it doesn't have to form a wonderful connection. I just need to be able to communicate with this person. So in conclusion to what I have to say concerning your question, I would say that you should really practice, because practice does make you get better, whatever it is you're doing. Think of it this way. If you have poor communication skills like you say you do, right, and you do not do anything about it, you just stay and you keep on reminding yourself, oh, I have poor communication skills, I'm not going to do this. Oh, I have poor communication skills, I'm not going to do that. In a period of 6 months, do you get better? You don't. You either stay the same or you even decline in your communication skills. But if you say, okay, it's scary, but I'm going to actually put my first one foot in front of the other, I'm putting another foot in front of the other around people who I know, and then a bit outside of my circle, and then a bit outside of that circle, and you keep on doing it little by little, give yourself 6 months, and between the both of us, you can actually say that there would be a difference in the way that the person will have experience. The person would start to say, okay, it's not as scary as it is, right? One other thing I can add to what I've said is that you could also have conversation starters. Now, conversation starters could be something like, how's your day? What do you think about this? Just things that are related to the situation you find yourself around that person. And no matter how badly you think you did during a previous conversation, just keep on going, and then eventually you'll get better at it. That's literally all I have to say about that. And then last but not least, somebody asked, doing a podcast is a lot, not gonna lie. The planning, sound engineering, editing, what keeps you going, and what's your most down-to-earth advice to people struggling to find their thing, whether learning a skill or getting consistent in something? Well, first of all, I would have to acknowledge what you've already acknowledged, which is that podcasting is a lot, right? Doing a podcast is a lot. I feel like most people, when they think about podcasting, especially audio podcasts, they think that it's just you coming to just talk on the microphone and then yap and yap and yap and yap and talk and then upload it and people are going to listen and then you're a very big, well-endowed podcaster. Nah, that's not the case actually. Podcasting is a lot, like you said, the planning. You have to ensure that your episode has structure. Unless maybe the people you're creating your podcast for are people who prefer to hear your stream of unstructured thoughts. But I feel like if you create a podcast that is just you rambling, there's no structure, your listeners are going to get turned off within the first few seconds. And that's just, you've just killed your entire podcast. So your podcast, you would have to ensure that it has structure. You have to ensure that your entire podcast has a purpose, from everything to sound engineering. I mean, the sound is not even something that I should start to talk about now, because when you're doing a podcast, your voice is literally going into people's ears. And so you want to ensure that they have a good listening experience. You don't want to create a bad sound that when somebody hears it, the most somebody could even give you is like 50 seconds. Some people within 10 seconds, they've cancelled the podcast because of how bad the audio quality sounds. You get, because no matter how good your podcast is, no matter whether it's the podcast with the most wonderful content in the entire universe, if the audio is crap, nobody's going to listen to it. It's better that your audio is beautiful, wonderful, everything is smooth, and your podcast is not above average, it's just there, than for your podcast to be exceptional but the audio quality is bad. So there's a lot, and we are not even talking about video podcasts whereby you talk about lightning, you talk about a lot of other things. You get, so yes, in acknowledgement to what you already said, doing a podcast is a lot. Now, to answer your questions, you said, what keeps you going and what's your most down-to-earth advice to people struggling to find their thing, whether learning a skill or getting consistent at something? So what keeps me going? I'm not going to lie to you. I thought about this and I said I was going to be honest when I come to talk about this, because I feel like when you ask some people what keeps you going, there's often this expectation that the answer should be something so strong and powerful. Like I should come here and tell you that I feel like there's just this fire in my heart. There's just this, I feel this very strong zeal when I think about the podcast. I'm filled with so much ecstasy. I can't even breathe without thinking about the podcast. But to be very honest, I think that doing this podcast boils down to two things. The first one I'm a bit embarrassed to admit, but I would admit, is that I feel like I've poured so much into the podcast and a lot of people know about the podcast, and I've advertised it so much to the point that stepping down and not going feels like a very large defeat. It feels like a slap on my face. So when I think about how far I've gone on the podcast, I've gone so far that I did not even expect to go this far on the podcast. When I think about how far I've gone on it, the thought of defeat literally makes me feel sick. I was talking with one of my friends, he's a podcaster too, and we're talking about the struggles we face as podcasters, and I was telling him how whenever I think of quitting the podcast, I often feel a very horrible twist in my heart, and we laughed about it. But to be honest, when I think about how far I've gone, I didn't even expect to go this far, and how I've really talked about the podcast and the goals and the visions and the plans I have. Those things keep me going. The thought of quitting feels very bad. Another reason as to what keeps me going is the fact that I feel like I have something to say on the podcast, and the fact that I feel like somebody somewhere needs to hear what I have to say. I think I've said a couple of times on the podcast that whenever I come to talk on the podcast, I say these things because I also need to hear them sometimes, and I also feel like some people need to hear them. And I've had scenarios whereby people text me, people I know and people I do not know at all, on Instagram and then on WhatsApp, and people tell me, wow, Martins, I really resonated with this episode you talked about. I liked what you talked about. It really meant so much to me. You're good at what you do, even though sometimes I often feel like I'm not really good at what I do, but you're good at what you do, Martins, keep it up, you're going places. I've received a couple of these messages from people I know and people whom I do not know. And these messages make me realize that what I'm doing, as messy, as unstructured, as unpolished as it looks, it actually is giving out a positive impact into the lives of people and then to myself too. And so because of these things, I actually feel like I can't quit this podcast. Not now, at least. I feel like this entire thing keeps me going. Does that answer the question? I think it does. I think it does. It sounded so much better in my head. Like I had this structured answer on how to present this, but this is how it came out. The fact that I've gone so far and I didn't expect to go as far as I've gone. And then also the fact that I've created a net positive impact on people's lives and also in my life too. These things keep me going. So yeah, and then you said, what's your most down to earth advice to people struggling to find their thing, whether it's learning a skill or getting consistent in something? When you say struggling to find their thing, what comes to my mind is that they are struggling to find their thing that they're going to put outside there. Like they are struggling to find their thing with which they would use to put themselves out there. Maybe learning a skill that they can use to put themselves out there or getting consistent in something. What I would say is that to find your own thing, to find your own groove in your own thing, and then to ensure that you can actually put yourself out there, that people would want to actually be attracted to what it is you do. You have to find a balance between what you like and what people would benefit from what you like, and the middle ground would be your thing. So if you're somebody who likes to cook, people like food obviously. The middle ground is you creating food either for content because people like to see food, or you create a restaurant really where you can provide food to people. Does that make sense? That makes sense to me, right? If you're somebody who likes to do some other thing, basically the thing should be what you like doing, what you enjoy doing, what gives you joy, what you see yourself doing for the long run, and then what you think people can benefit from this your skill, from this your talent, from this whatever it is you have. The middle ground is where you can find your thing that can now put you out there, that you can then use to put yourself out there. And then when you asked about being consistent in something, what came to my mind was a conversation I had with a friend of mine last year. He's a creative as well, and we were talking about being consistent in our creative endeavors. He's into music creation, and I think I asked him, how do you stay consistent with what you do, creating music? I mean, we are little creatives, we are not well-known creatives, and so sometimes it might get discouraging whereby you're thinking of the dreams you have, the kind of audience you want to have, the community you want to create, and it's not matching the realities of what you're seeing. How do you actually stay consistent? How do you stay unwavered? How are you just unwavering in what you do and you're consistent? Because he's consistently serious in his craft, putting his all into it. And there is something that he said to me that has stuck with me since last year up until this very moment I'm having this conversation with you. He said, all I do is to take it one song at a time, one song at a time. When I'm focusing on a particular song, I'm not thinking about the outcome. I'm not thinking about the audience. I'm just focusing on pouring into this art I'm creating. I'm thinking about the impact it's going to make. I'm thinking about what I want someone to feel about it. And then I create it and I focus on just that. And so when it comes to you, focus on just an episode at a time. Take it an episode at a time. Take it an episode. And that's what I have been doing, literally. I focus on what I want someone to take out from an episode. I focus on the entire essence of what it is I'm trying to create at that particular point in time. And I create it. And once I'm done with that, I put it out there. I publicize it. And I move on to the next. And then what happens is that you then create an entire catalog of things that you did not even think about. Like if you think about your creative endeavors as a whole, you think about being consistent in what you do as a big time something, you might get overwhelmed. And I don't think this only applies to creative endeavors. I think it applies to every other place. Taking things one step at a time, big steps, but at a time. It could be big steps, it could be smaller steps, but you're taking it one step at a time. Will ensure that you don't feel overwhelmed and then pause or you procrastinate and push it further. But instead, you're just taking it, since it's one step, you're actually able to achieve it, complete it, tick it off, and then move on to the next thing. That's literally what I have to say about this. And that's all I have to say for today's advice episode. Thank you so much to every one of you who sent your questions. I feel like it would have been so sad if nobody sent anything and then I had to create my own questions and I had to ask myself and behave like it was people who were doing that. That would have been sad, right? I don't know why. I just thought about that and it would have been sad. But thank you for asking questions. And I genuinely hope that the advice I've provided would help provide clarity when it comes to these your dilemmas. And I genuinely hope that you guys find your own foot in this world and become the best versions of yourself, okay? That's all I've got for today's episode. Check out the Almost 20 podcast on Instagram at Almost 20 podcast. Check out me, your host, on Instagram at _Guy Martins. You could also check me out on TikTok, although I haven't really started posting videos on TikTok. But my TikTok username is at _Guy Martins. Please don't forget to follow the podcast if you haven't, wherever it is you're listening. Rate the podcast if you're listening on Spotify. That actually helps a lot, because when people come and see that, oh, this podcast has a number of ratings, it means that, oh, people listen to this podcast and people actually get value from it. Like, it's something that would make them want to play an episode. Like, that's what most people see before they decide if they should play an episode or not. Yeah, so please, if you could do so, you can share the episode with a friend who you think would benefit so much from this episode. And then there's something I wanted to address before we end this episode, and it had to do with the way I talk on the podcast. Recently, I had a conversation with some people, and I got feedback from a couple of other people, and people were talking about how, oh, Martins, you sound like you're reading a script on your podcast. And I was like, what the hell do you mean? What do you mean I sound like I'm reading a script on the podcast? I didn't know how to take that, to be very honest, because I was wondering how not sounding like you're reading from a script should sound like. Because I'm aware of how structured my episodes normally sound, especially the solo episode, because like I said, it's going to be messy if you are creating a podcast and you're talking into people's ears and all you are doing is just rambling with your thoughts. And so I ensure that I have my episode all structured out. They're like bullet points. Like, as I'm talking to you here, with me are bullet points for this episode. And so I have bullet points and I'm going through them. And when I reach a bullet point, I'm talking about it. I extend everything I say is my own words. Everything I say is from my head, literally. The bullet points just help me to know how to navigate, how to divert, when to digress, how to move. It's just like a structure, you get. Like 90% of everything I say in this entire podcast, even 99% is from my head. I do not read from a script at all. But I guess maybe when I sound like I'm in thought, or when I'm thinking really deeply, to ensure that I pass my message as clearly and as articulately as I could, most people could think that it's me reading off a script. I just feel like I should address it on the episode. I do not read off a script at all. I have bullet points, and maybe if I want to get a definition down to the words because I want it to flow how I want it to flow, I might read a paragraph from a script, but that's it. I don't read the entire, no, I don't script an entire episode. No, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I thought to just address that. This boy does not read from a script. He speaks from his head and from his heart while being guided by bullet points. Alright, that's all I have to say. Thank you for chilling with me. It's always wonderful to have a conversation with you. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Bye.
Para mi familia siempre estoy en mi mejor momento, por eso también quiero lo mejor en mi cocina, y eso significa solamente huevos de Eggland Best. Siempre tienen un sabor tan fresco y delicioso, con 6 veces más vitamina D, 10 veces más vitamina E y 25% menos grasas saturadas que los huevos comunes. Entonces, ¿por qué darle menos a tu familia cuando pueden tener lo mejor? Eggland's Best, mejor sabor, mejor nutrición, mejores huevos.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you can choose the best coverage option for you. Because you know you. Like, you know you can't cook. You're not one of those people who say that they can, but when people come over for dinner, they find out the hard way, you can't. You can't even microwave popcorn, and that's literally just one button. Plus, measuring and patience are huge parts of cooking, and that's just not you. Only you know you. So get coverage options within your budget with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.